Namo Krishna Krishna Srimati Swami Namaste Saraswati Guru Bhakta Nirvishesha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasati Gaur Bhakta Ki Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome everyone. Do we have any new guests today? Okay, thank you so much for coming. Tonight I'm going to speak about how to cross the ocean of anxiety and live joyfully. So there was several months ago, I think about 5 months ago, I was going on a hike with my dear godbrother, Navadvip Prabhu and Gaur Sundar Prabhu. And Gaur Sundar was approaching everybody, and he was asking everybody, "Are you happy? Are you happy?" And he was so enthusiastic, and the way he said it was so joyful, that everybody responded and say, "Yeah, of course I'm happy. Of course I'm happy. Yeah." But I was doing some research, and I found that the number one emotional disorder is anxiety, and 20% of Americans have anxiety, and half of those have depression. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is the manual for mental disorders, it grows larger every year. There's so much chaos and disorder, and everybody's in anxiety. Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, said, from the President of the United States to the king of the forest, the tiger, or the lion, everybody in the material world is in anxiety, and full of anxiety and suffering. And I actually saw this the other day. I was doing some chanting, some prayers on my feet, and I saw a caterpillar, and it was being attacked by ants. And the caterpillar started flipping back and forth on the ground, trying to get the ants off. It was just everybody is struggling, everybody's in anxiety. And this anxiety, this mental anxiety, this mental stress that we face is only one of the three miseries. There's also miseries from other living entities and miseries from natural disasters. So from all angles, we're in anxiety and we're suffering and struggling. And it's just described as it's like a forest fire that just happens. And nobody asked it to happen, nobody wanted it to happen, it just happened. So that's like the material world. There's fires constantly. We finally think we're at peace and we're happy and we've reached some place of peace, and then something else happens. So that's the nature of the material world. So I'm going to speak a little bit tonight from some of the very ancient scriptures, the most ancient scriptures in the world. And they're called the Vedas, and Veda means knowledge. So really any sort of knowledge in the world, in the universe, is Veda. Veda is knowledge. But the Vedas of India, which were compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, who was an empowered incarnation of the Lord, he compiled all the Vedas of India, which include medicine, architecture, every field you can imagine. And they say that the topmost Veda is the Vedas which speak about what is the meaning of life, where am I going, why am I suffering, and all these important questions that we're able to ask as humans. So that's the most renowned scripture, the Bhagavad Gita from India. It's like the crown jewel of the Vedas. And it speaks about all these topics in detail. So we take 3 sources to draw up a roadmap in order to begin our spiritual life. And we take a guru, a spiritual master, someone who is in touch with the spiritual world. Some people would say, well, if I don't know something, if I can't understand it with my mind, then it can't be true. But there is a spiritual reality, and once we get in contact with somebody who is in contact with the spiritual reality, then we can go to them and inquire from them. So we have the guru, the spiritual master. And the spiritual master, a bona fide spiritual master, he doesn't speculate, he doesn't make up his own opinion, but he takes his knowledge from a previous guru or acharya. Acharya is someone who teaches by example. So these great saints and great souls, they teach by example, by the way they live. Saint Francis from the Christian faith, he always preached that we should preach constantly, and when it's necessary, say something. Therefore, we should preach with our actions, and that is the most important. So we have the guru, we have the spiritual master, and then we have the scriptures, the bona fide scriptures. And the third part that makes up the roadmap in our spiritual life is the saintly persons. So if we have these people who are in this consciousness, who are trying to elevate their consciousness, we have these 3 pieces. They call it the triangle of truth. These 3, guru, sadhu, and sastra. Acharya is one who teaches by example, guru, and the sadhu actually means to cut. And what they're cutting is they're cutting the unwanted attachments from the heart. We're cutting the greed, the anger, the envy, the pride, the illusion. All these things we're trying to eliminate from the heart. And by associating with saintly persons, we are able to elevate our consciousness. It's a law of nature that who we associate with we become. And that's even acknowledged by scientists or anybody who studies psychology or social psychology. So when we start to switch our association with people who are interested in spiritual life, then we begin to elevate our own consciousness. And we can rise above the mundane consciousness, which is where can I find food? Where can I sleep? I need to find a mate. How can I mate? And then defending all that which you've acquired. And so animals can do this, and we need to rise above this consciousness. Because there's 8,400,000 species of life, and the human life is very rare. So Prabhupada says in one of his, Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Krishna means the all-attractive one. So Krishna is a person. God is a person. And we can see this just very simply by acknowledging that there is a source to consciousness. You cannot get life from non-life. Life comes from life. Consciousness comes from consciousness. And personalism comes from personalism. So we don't come here from a non-personal being. We don't come here from a void or from a light. We come here from a person. And Krishna is everything. Everything in the spiritual and material worlds emanate from Krishna. He can do whatever he wants. Some Christians will say, if you ask a Christian, you say, is your God all-powerful? Is he the strongest? Is he the most beautiful? When you ask them that, you ask anybody, they say, yeah, of course, my God is all those things. But then when we start to tell them what God can really do, then they kind of shut down. They don't acknowledge that this can actually happen. Well, God can do anything, and he actually can manifest in different forms. So he has unlimited forms, he has unlimited names, he has unlimited pastimes. And he's also situated in the heart of every living being. So the first level of getting free from anxiety is, as Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, how can there be happiness without peace? Without peace. There has to be peace. So the first thing that helps us become peaceful is to understand who we really are, who our true nature is. The body is constantly changing. Every second, the cells in the body are changing. Actually, every 7 years, we have a completely new body. Therefore, it's very impermanent and temporary. And if we put all our attachments and all our focus on the body, we're always going to be in anxiety because we're constantly losing what we have. Therefore, to me, the bodily concept of life automatically causes anxiety. So we have to understand that, actually, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, we are not this body. We are eternal spirit soul. And the body cannot be killed. It cannot be pierced by a sword. It cannot be withered by the wind. It cannot be burned with fire. It is eternal. It is the eternal consciousness. It's the spark of consciousness within every living entity. Therefore, we have to acknowledge that every living entity is sacred. Therefore, the spark of consciousness is the living entity. And to know that and see that. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Hinosmin yatadehe konam yoganam jara tatati hatarapa kirgiras tatranamuyati. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body of death. A sober person cannot be bewildered by such a change. So, our actions during life, and our desires, and ultimately our state of consciousness, determines our next body. So at every moment we are creating our next body by our desires, by our actions. The living entity is giving independence without free will, but it's very small independence. Krishna has unlimited independence. He can be everywhere at all times. His consciousness can spread across the whole universe. We have very small independence. And we're here because we're trying to be big like God. We're trying to be God. We want to be the source of enjoyment. We want to be the object of affection, of attention, of worship. It's described as like a young child who tells his mother, "Mom, I want the moon. I want to hold the moon. Please allow me to hold the moon." And the mother's like, "You can't hold the moon. The moon's too big. You can't handle the moon. You can't hold the moon." And so eventually, after the child keeps on begging and asking, "Please let me hold the moon," the mother gives the child a mirror, and the child is able to see the reflection of the moon in the mirror. So then he's holding the moon. So Krishna creates this material world for us to try to be like God. We are so small, but Krishna is so kind that he gives us this material world to try to enjoy as the controller and the proprietor of everything. Although we're small, we have the same quality of Krishna because we're part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna is made up of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. If our true nature is full of knowledge, is not suffering. Our true nature is not one of suffering. We actually create our own suffering by turning away from God. An example of this is that if you turn away from the sun, then you create a shadow. If you're facing the sun, there can never be a shadow. When the light shines directly to you, there can't be a shadow. When light is shining, there's no darkness. Therefore, all we have to do is direct our attention and our focus and our love to God, who is our ultimate and supreme friend, who has been with us, has never left us. We have just turned away from him. So the second state of mind that Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita that we need to be free from in order to attain peace is we have to be free from this idea that we're the proprietor, that we're the controller, that everything we see, the disease, as Prabhupada says, is trying to lord it over the material nature. Therefore, everything we see is for our enjoyment. And this is the opposite of love. Love is, what can I give you for your enjoyment rather than what can I get for my own enjoyment? So we have to give up the idea that we own anything. We're given everything. We're given everything. We're given the ability to see. We're given this very body. Material scientists or a doctor can study a teeny part of the body for their whole life, and they still can't understand the complexities of it. Still can't tell exactly how it works and what it does. We don't know how our own bodies work. We're given everything. We're given all facility. But we become proud due to this identification with the body. We think we're the body. We think we're the controller. We think that ultimately we can find happiness by acquiring more and more. So we'd be free from this idea of proprietorship. We understand everything belongs to God. He is the source of all material and spiritual universes. Said that just with a teeny fraction of his being, he supports the entire spiritual and material universes. And the material universe is just 1/4 of God's creation. The material universe is massive. It consists of millions of universes. The Milky Way galaxy contains millions of universes. And so that's also the way we acquire knowledge, is we take knowledge from a higher source. Because if we try to acquire with our own senses and through the senses of others, then we can reach a very small level of understanding. When we take knowledge from somebody who is in touch with this other reality, then we can know the truth. So prayer we say before class is, I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him. Therefore, before our spiritual master comes, who is a pure devotee of God, we cannot know anything. He opens our eyes. Before he opens our eyes, we are in complete anxiety. We are trying to find our way. And the spiritual master, by his mercy, he shows us the way. And the final, Krishna says finally that we need to be free from desire for sense gratification. And how the cycle works, how suffering starts, is it starts in our mind. We start thinking about, Krishna calls the object of our senses. We start contemplating on the object of our senses. So we might be thinking about anything from a strawberry cupcake or anything. And we start thinking about it. And as we think about it, attachment in our mind forms. Before we were thinking and contemplating, we didn't have any attachment. We were satisfied without it. Attachment forms. And from attachment comes lust. And lust is the eternal enemy. Krishna says we must kill this eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied, which burns like fire. So even if we obtain the object of our desire, the material object of our desire, we are going to want more. Or we're going to be afraid of losing it. So from this lust, then anger arises. Because we're not satisfied. The process is very frustrating. Because it happens again and again, and we're not satisfied. And from anger, when there's anger, bewilderment of memory and loss of intelligence. And then the cycle starts over again. And then we think that we can enjoy by switching the combinations of material enjoyment. So we think that if we, add some maybe ice cream to the strawberry cupcake, then we can, really enjoy it. But the fact is that enjoyment doesn't come from gratifying our material senses. Enjoyment comes from satisfying our soul. When we satisfy the soul, that is the true happiness. We can actually be suffering on the bodily platform, but if our soul is satisfied, then we can have true happiness. So Krishna says we need to be free from this duality of this happiness and distress. We need to rise above that. We need to rise to consciousness above that. We need to understand that just like if you water the root of a tree, automatically all the branches are nourished. Or if you keep food in your hand, it's not going to satisfy it. So if we put it into our mouth, into our stomach, it will satisfy us. So we need to understand that we can only truly be happy by identifying with who we really are, with our true position in this world, our true identity. I'm a spirit soul. So what is my occupation? My eternal occupation, which goes beyond any bodily conception, is that I am a servant. I am a servant of Krishna. I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, and he's my best friend since time immemorial. And when we seek with every action, every desire to satisfy Krishna, in our loving relationship, then we are satisfied. And that's the only way we can become satisfied. So this might seem extremely difficult. How can I give up gratifying my senses? This is, what else can I do? That's my only sense of enjoyment. Well, Krishna says that the only way is to develop what he calls a higher taste. So, for instance, if you were extremely hungry and you had a biscuit, and the biscuit, it would look pretty good because you were very hungry, and it had a little bit of butter spread on it, so it had a little taste to it. And then somebody came and said, if I gave you this 12-course meal with all your favorite dishes, would you trade me the biscuit for this meal? You would easily say, yes, of course. So we have to develop this higher taste. And a higher taste comes from devotional service. As we develop our consciousness, as we become more mature adults, as children, we want everything's about me, and you're the center of attention. We develop our consciousness, and then we start focusing our attention on others, on our friends, and on our family. We start to understand that we can be happy by assisting and helping our family. And then we again raising consciousness and start thinking about our community, and we start thinking about our country, and then we start thinking about the world, and then we start thinking about all humanity. And we start to understand by having this large focus and seeing that we need to have compassion for those who are suffering. And that actually fulfills us more than, let me get this for me, let me get more for me. But this idea that we need to expand our consciousness to help others. And then finally, having compassion for humanity doesn't end there. We have to have compassion for every living entity. Some people would say, I have compassion and I want to spread humanitarian, I want to help those suffering, but let's just kill and eat all the animals. Let's just put them all in big cages and slaughter all of them. Well, this is not true compassion. This is not understanding that every living entity is sacred and part of Krishna, and that we need to cultivate this compassion within us and to help each other, every living entity. But ultimately, when we focus on pleasing the Lord, then all these other things come automatically. All this compassion for others comes automatically. This love for others comes automatically. And this talk is how to cross over the ocean of anxiety. We transfer that to the ocean of devotional service. So I just want to read a quick quote from the Nectar of Devotion, which was written by Srila Prabhupada. It says, "The happiness derived from devotional service and Krishna consciousness is so transcendental and so unlimited that no other happiness can compare to it. It is said that even one drop of happiness in Krishna consciousness stands beyond comparison with an ocean of happiness derived from any other activity." So, the ocean of devotional service. And it's never ending, this happiness that you can derive from devotional service that can increase more and more and more as you experience and you taste it. That roadmap of truth that we begin to follow, we follow the Guru, the Sadhu, and the Sastra. And that's the theoretical roadmap to approach the Lord. As we practice and we engage in the practice, the blissful practices of chanting the holy name of Krishna, which is given to us by the Lord himself. He says that this is the only way in this age of Kali, this age of cruel hypocrisy, this is the only way in which we can attain self-realization and love of God. So by chanting the names of Krishna as a gift given to us by the Lord, and as we chant, we start to develop a taste for devotional service, a taste for chanting. And by mantra, man means mind and tra means to deliver. So when we chant, the mind starts to slow down. And we start to come off of what we call the mental platform. And then the peace starts to develop. They say it's like turning off a switch of a fan. The fan, when you turn off the switch, it's still spinning. But slowly, as you continue to chant, it will start to slow down. And then you can be situated in consciousness where you're peaceful. But happiness does not stop at peace. Happiness rises above that. And happiness comes from not necessarily from suffering, but but it comes from directing our love and our attention in the wrong direction. So when we start to direct our attention towards Krishna, which is chanting this Maha Mantra, because the names of Krishna are not different than Krishna himself. He's given us this gift that when we chant the names, he is with us. And he is in the sound vibration. Actually, sound vibration is the first, the start of the universe, the sound vibration. The Lord is extremely powerful. And we let this enter into our consciousness. And it's the Supreme Lord directly coming. We are inviting the Supreme Lord to come into our heart. And as we chant more and more, we start to develop a taste. Krishna says towards the end of Bhagavad Gita that some things are bitter at first and then they become sweet. And some things are sweet at first and then they become bitter. Material enjoyment, satisfying the senses, is something that is maybe sweet at first, then it becomes very bitter. But devotional service, it may be hard at first because you have to give up some many attachments that we've had for we don't know how long. But as we continue to engage in it with determination and with faith, we have to have faith in the beginning. Krishna says that faith can turn into knowledge. Krishna says you can know me in full without a doubt. Therefore, we need to have faith in the beginning. But as we continue to engage in the practice, Krishna will reveal himself to us more and more. And we'll feel his presence in our heart and it will become real. And we can understand that we can come to the level of peace, but we can also experience unlimited joy in Krishna consciousness. Krishna says, however our state of consciousness is at the time when we leave our body, and when this life comes to an end, that state we will attain without a fail. Therefore, our mind is absorbed in sense gratification, then we're going to have to take birth again. Because our desires, Krishna fulfills all our desires. But if we desire Krishna, we desire the ultimate goal of life, the all-attractive one. It's very easy to love Krishna. He's the most beautiful. He's full in 6 opulences: beauty, strength, fame, knowledge, wealth, renunciation. Therefore, we put our consciousness towards Krishna. And Krishna then reciprocates with us. So we give up things for Krishna, we sacrifice some things for Krishna. But he gives us so much more than we could ever imagine. So that's the process of devotional service. The philosophy can be endless. You can study philosophy for years and it's very beautiful. But it won't do anything for us until we actually engage in the process. If we engage in the process with humility, we need some humility to understand that we don't know, we don't have an answer. We're suffering. And we have a little bit of humility and a little bit of faith. And that's what we need in the beginning. And then we engage in the service, in the devotional service. The very blissful processes. It's not difficult. We chant, we sing, we chant, we dance, we play instruments, we eat opulent food, we associate with very saintly people, very wonderful devotees. And we help each other, we lift each other up. So, is there any questions?
Yes. Could you expound please on the meaning of renunciation of the Lord?
Okay, so renunciation basically means that I am fully satisfied within myself. And it's a very attractive feature, actually. It's saying that I love you, I want to love you, I'm here for you, but I am full in myself. I am filled with love in myself. So Krishna, he is renounced from, and it also means renounced from any sense enjoyment, totally renounced. The only thing that Krishna desires is love from his true devotees, from his pure devotees. So that's his only desire. That's the only thing that will. It says that Krishna is the conqueror of Cupid. He conquers Cupid with his love. And pure devotional service conquers Krishna. When the devotee surrenders to Krishna with pure love, Krishna surrenders to the devotee. And Krishna is actually controlled by the devotee. So pure devotional service attracts even Krishna, who is the all-attractive one. So. there anything else?
I was wondering, you keep on referring to Krishna as he, and you said that like Krishna is all of our reality and encompasses, the Godhead that is all of us and all of us. So, is Krishna masculine or feminine, or neither or both? And if Krishna is only masculine, what is the role of females and the feminine in this reality?
That's a great question. So Krishna is both masculine and feminine. And his feminine potency, his internal potency, is his pleasure potency. That's manifest in this form of Srimati Radharani, who is our divine mother, who is always with Krishna and bound in this ecstatic loving relationship. And Srimati Radharani controls Krishna with her love. So just like men are often controlled by women in the material world, Krishna is controlled by Srimati Radharani's love. So thank you all so much for coming and listening, and just encourage everybody to join us in chanting, blissfully chanting the holy names and associating with us. We need your association. You wouldn't be here if there wasn't a reason for you being here. For Krishna, understanding that there's a time when we're just ready. We're ready to take the next step to get beyond the material platform and come to a higher level of consciousness. So thank you all for coming and joining us. So Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Beautiful. Beautiful.